I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen of this honorable House, the opposition has so far attempted gallantly to shake this motion's firm footing, and yet unfortunately there remains many concerns of the government side and the general public in the sense of loopholes and areas which the opposition has not been successful at covering, while in contrast the government has provided the answer to those concerns and more. And now allow me as a member of the government to continue defending our side of the House's position and tackle the arguments presented by the opposition. First and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, the deputy leader of the opposition mentioned the issue of possible inaccuracies in the audit and assessment of the amount corrupted. In her speech, she mentioned that we should be expecting human errors when we are auditing the amount that has been taken away by the corruptors from state and public treasury. Concerning this matter, I would like to present two responses that would render this argument irrelevant to the effort of making our motion fall. First, human error is to be expected in all activities conducted by both government and private institutions. Now, ladies and gentlemen, does this mean that whatever activity it might be would completely fail as a result of these human errors? Of course not. Sure, human error or any other kinds of errors for this matter must be kept at a bare minimum in order to not ruin the entire activity. But its presence does not invalidate the purpose of the activity. And second of all, if the basis that the opposition uses against impoverishment is possible human errors, then why not apply the same reasoning when it comes to taxation? It seems to us that the opposing side is applying double standards, since taxation is famously known to contain large amounts of inaccuracies, but despite that, it is still carried out for other more relevant and necessary actions and more necessary reasons. The same applies to impoverishment. Human error does not render this effort to keep corruption at bay invalid and irrelevant. And so those 2 points have rendered the arguments of the deputy leader of opposition invalid. Second of all, the deputy leader of opposition has mentioned that impoverishing means creating more burden for the state. Now, at the same time, almost simultaneously, the deputy leader of opposition has mentioned that their mechanism of rehabilitation also would require some amount of funding. And also one clarification is that we would like to re-mention what has been mentioned by our Prime Minister, that we also have a mechanism of rehabilitation, but our main concern is the impoverishment, but that does not mean there wouldn't be any form of rehabilitation. Now, let's look at this reasoning. Impoverishing means creating more burden for the state. At least in our case, we have 150% of what the corruptor has taken that we, as the government, could manage and could use for purposes such as reparation and taking care of the welfare of the family of the corruptors, and on top of that, rehabilitation. The opposition does not possess any form of mechanisms that would cause the same effect of funding what is needed to do, what we need to do with the corruptors. And the third point that was brought upon by the deputy leader of opposition is that low-level corruption cannot trigger the government to foreclose the corruptors' properties. And the fourth one, which I'm going to tackle using the same argumentation, is that in their terms, in their language, not impoverishing means not punishing, which is very much incorrect. And so why that is incorrect is that, first of all, the higher level corruptions and corruptors would be used and impoverished as a public example. And it is very much just, since they have taken away a huge amount of public funding, and their resulting effects are far-reaching and far-arcing, and it's more rampant than the lower level corruptions. And so they will be used as a public example to deter people from corrupting. And the second point that I would like to mention is that not impoverishing does not mean not punishing. The lower level corruptors would also be punished using the status quo that we already have now, but they, in contrast to the higher level corruptors, would not be completely impoverished as is mentioned by the deputy leader of the opposition. And it must also be noted that we do not impoverish the families and the corruptors to a level that they would not be able to continue living, eating normally, and to pursue education. Rather, we would provide their welfare using the amount of money that we have taken away from them, who would probably be using the money for unclear and also irresponsible things, and we would take that money and we would manage it so that it would benefit the greater good. The last point that was brought upon by the deputy leader of opposition and is about how the criminal justice system, according to their side of the house, uses the principle of equality. Now, this is very much wrong, and let me explain to the panel why that is the case. Criminal justice system does not use the principle of equality. The example of a serial killer that was given by the opposition does not take place in a way that the lives of the 7 poor lives, for example, of the victims that has been taken by the perpetrator will not cause the deaths of another 7 individuals. And so do not look at the amount of money taken away from convicted corruptors using the percentage we have proposed as being unequal, since criminal justice system does not use that principle in the first place. Rather, look at it as a proportionate reaction. Proportionate in the sense that it would provide certain desired effects. Killing 7 more people does not cause the lives of the 7 victims to be returned, but it provides proportionate punishment to the murderer, as death penalty prevents him or her from killing more people, and providing some form of relief to the family of the deceased, and further making an example to deter others from committing the same crime. Last, the same could be applied to our case. Our side's proposal provides proportional justice in the sense that 100% of the stolen wealth is returned, and on top of that, another 50% is used as punishment. The complete effect would be deterrence, reparation, and termination of the crime, and we are proud to propose.
I'm going to start my speech at 3, 2, 1. Panel, ladies and gentlemen, this speaker will summarize the point justified by the government and explain why the government side has won the debate. The government has provided more valid evidences throughout the debate. The government mainly talks about justification and punishment with the goal of deterring the corruptors and also compensation to the nation. And what this speaker wants to suggest is that we have to focus on the main problem. The main problem was this house would impoverish corruptors. However, the opposition team viewed it as a way of adding more burden to the nation. So this house will now rebut the arguments made by the opposition side. First, leader of opposition talk about by impoverishment of the corruptors. They won't have enough or proper sanitary and have malnourishment and all the problems that usually faced by lower class people. The Prime Minister, however, has actually clearly stated that we are still going to make them having enough money to support their life and have enough food so that they won't experience malnutrition. Therefore, the government side is still considering the human right of the corruptors. And also take note that the Prime Minister has set the parameter that the corruptors that will undergo impoverishment are the ones who stole billions, which of course, if we compare on the importance, considering the necessities of the nation, basing on the necessities of the nation and effect caused by corruption, especially to the lower classes, which is comparably has worse impact for the nation, which is even putting more people in poverty. It is more important for us to protect the welfare of the nation rather than the billion, right? Second, the leader of opposition has tried to tell you that putting corruptors under impoverishment means we are also putting some innocence for something that they have never controlled. Actually, the families has enjoyed their life using the money that isn't supposed to be theirs, and while the nations are working hard to pay taxes in order to support the corruptors' family's life. Is that what the opposition has tried to tell us? This isn't sound fair too for the innocent nations. The third one, putting corrupter, the deputy of leader of opposition has tried to tell us that putting corrupter under impoverishment means we're adding lower class person to the nation. This argument still do not stand since the corruptors put more people under the poverty line and even take more people prosperity. Next, my next rebuttal will be the deputy leader of opposition has also tried to tell us about the unemployment of the corruptor. Take into consideration also the social sanction given by the society that makes it harder for them to get a job. However, this argument contradicts the leader of opposition statement that says that mentioned about the jail punishment. Being in jail means it even harder for them to even do the job hunting. Therefore, the government side has proposed better solution by leaving some amount leaving the corruptor some amount of money. We're giving them the second chance, even if they're determined enough to go out from the poverty lines, then they are going to work hard for it, right? And lastly, the opposition side has also talked about the rehabilitation. The rehabilitation system doesn't really solve the problem. The corruptors still have enough money to do the bribes to just sleeping out of the rehabilitation centers. And developing rehabilitation center costs a lot of capital. And the goal is to deter the corruptors and compensate to the nation, which the nation has the corruptors has took that from them the welfareness that they have. And by doing this, it adds even more capital to the country, and still this rehabilitation center or system still have a chance of failing. And what if it's failed? It might lead to a even worse impact to the nation. So, ladies and gentlemen, the government side has bring a lot better evidences and solutions to the problems, and the government side is considering the welfare of even bigger group, which is the nation, rather than the small group of villain, which is what the opposition side tried to do. I'm going to close my speech with a quote which says, "Corruption is paid by the poor people." This is the closing government proudly proposed. Thank you.